Chapter 4, October 5th, 1942, Tarnow Ghetto. I didn't have to wait for long inside the Tarnow Ghetto before a tall, gangly boy approached me. He might have been my age, 16, but his bony face made him look older than he probably was. He looked at me as if he knew who I was, and I gave him a distinct nod of confirmation. "Did Dolek send you?" he asked cautiously. He did. If this boy knew Dolek's name, it was enough proof that he could be that we could trust each other. The boy sighed, obviously relieved. "My name is Fischl. I arranged this meeting." Fischl probably wasn't his real name either, but I wouldn't ask for anything more, nor would I tell him my name. Information was a dangerous currency. We were better off knowing as little about each other as possible. He added, "We expected you here earlier. We're running out of time." Maybe he wasn't aware that among other challenges of living in an occupied country, the Nazi soldiers were hardly going to make it convenient for a Jewish courier to smuggle stolen items in and out of a sealed ghetto. But I pressed my lips together, reminding myself that he couldn't know that. Fischl was trapped in here, as isolated from the outside world as any other resident. I only said, "Then let's not waste time standing here." Fischl immediately led me deeper inside, into the ghetto, obviously in a hurry. "Is there any news from the outside?" "No good news." "Is the package ready?" The question set my heart pounding. Smuggling out of a ghetto was far more dangerous than smuggling in. It was. I hope nothing has changed. We passed a boy lying on the street, half-clothed, without shoes, and so still that I thought he was dead, but his eyes tracked us as we passed. Why were we just passing him by? I touched Fischl's arm. "Should we?" "He'll be gone by morning. Our efforts must be for those who can be saved." Fischl's tone wasn't cold, just realistic, which was almost worse. We left the boy behind, but his eyes would follow me forever. He wasn't the first person I'd seen who was starving. First, they begged on their feet, then they sat, then all they could do was lie on the ground, as this boy was doing. In ordinary times, I would never have walked away from someone in such desperate need. But these were not ordinary times. How often must I be reminded of that? Someone will collect his body tomorrow. Fischl had chosen his words carefully, and I understood them. The boy wouldn't be buried tomorrow. A burial required the Judenrat to make a record of his death. But if a family kept his body in hiding, they could use his ration card to get an extra share of food. Use his death to give themselves a better chance for life. We entered an apartment with crumbling plaster walls and a door with a spray of bullet holes through its center. "There was an action last month," he explained, still in the matter-of-fact tone. I tried not to look, tried not to think about who had hidden here and why, and how futile it had been. Anywhere outside the ghetto, this building would have been condemned long ago. But here, the Judenrat was forced to consider these adequate living conditions. They wouldn't be adequate for one's worst enemy. Trying to survive the ghetto was like treading water. You might keep your head up for a while, but if you didn't get out, eventually you would go under. "Is that her?" A woman stepped from the shadows, squinting against the light and looking as ghostly as if she had been an actual apparition. She had a rash on one arm that spread up and across her neck. When she began coughing, my suspicions were confirmed. This woman had typhus. the plague of the ghettos. Whenever possible, we tried to smuggle in vaccinations, but even if I'd had one, they were almost always kept for the children, which meant that she was already as dead as that boy on the ground outside. Only neither of their bodies knew it yet. When Fischel confirmed that I was the courier, she opened her eyes and whispered a prayer under her breath, then widened her coat to reveal the package. My purpose for coming. It was a baby girl, probably no more than 5 months old. She was bundled up in a knitted blanket that likely contained the same lice that gave her mother this disease. I made this blanket for her. The mother fingered it tenderly. I hope it will always be her special gift. I'd have to dispose of this blanket as soon as possible, as well as the clothes and anything else that connected the baby to this ghetto. My daughter's name is Sipora, a Jewish name that had already been changed on the forged birth certificate I was carrying. From the moment I left the ghetto, this baby would be known as Arina, a good Polish name. "We have to go," Fischel said nervously. "The sleeping pills will wear off soon," which explained his worry about me arriving late. They gave the baby the pills too early. Will my daughter grow up, knowing who she is, knowing who I am? The mother's eyes became bright with tears, wondering if she was doing the right thing, if it wouldn't be better to let her daughter die here as a Jewish child. It was a question that always filled me with guilt. If this war ended? No. When this war ended, the parents of these infants would never know where to begin looking for their child. I touched her arm, speaking softly. "Your daughter will grow up. That is most important." My words seemed to satisfy her, so I emptied my bag of the shawls. We'd already sewn a mesh patch into the bottom of the bag that would allow it in enough air for the infant until I was safely out of the ghetto. The mother kissed her daughter and whispered, "My dear Sipora," likely the last time her true name would ever be spoken to her. But when I held out my arms, she couldn't force herself to give the baby up. Fischel leaned in, taking the baby. "It must be this way," he said. "Give her a chance to live." The woman agreed and immediately sank to the floor, quietly sobbing. I choked back my own tears. If I was going to assure this woman that she had made the right decision, then I had to stay strong. But inside, every sob that emptied from the woman cut my heart a little more. This was the right thing to do. I knew it, and also knew I'd have to remind myself of that again, at least 1,000 times before this mission was over. I hoped this was the right thing to do. Fischel lowered the infant into the bottom of my bag, then put down a thin piece of wood to be sure Sipora wasn't suffocated from above. The shawl went in last of all. Hopefully, that would be enough. He helped to raise the bag onto my back, but before I left, I offered the weeping mother the best hope I could. "The family who was taking your daughter are good people. They always wanted a child of their own and never could have one. They will love her as you do and protect her as courageously as you have until now." The mother looked up at me, her eyes empty of light. "May God go with you." Fischel promised to check in on her again, then led me from the apartment. "I have to go out through a different gate," I said. "They're watching for me at the one I entered." He clicked his tongue. "That's farther away. We have to hurry." But with a sleeping infant tucked in the bag on my back, we couldn't go too fast, nor could we draw any attention to ourselves, especially since we were passing the Judenrat office now, which we usually shared by the OD. We picked up our steps and took whatever shortcuts we could, but It was all done with our heads down, the same as most other people trapped in here. When the west gate came into view, Fischel shook my hand, grateful, but eager to see me go. I hope to see you again. I hope so too. That would mean both of us had survived today's smuggling job. That would mean I'd safely escaped another ghetto. I chose the guard who looked most likely to give me a pass, this time a German about my father's age. I didn't like to interact with the Poles or the OD. They are usually more adept at recognizing one of their own. I had my papers ready for him, and he made the same inquiries as the officer did when I tried to get in. I showed him the shawls and complained that the women inside the ghetto must not have any money left to purchase them because they were very good shawls. What do the dead need with money? His cynical laugh was like a drill on my chest. He thought we were sharing a joke. I thought about sharing my knife with his gut. I bit back the response I wanted to give, but before he gave me permission to leave, I heard a soft coo coming from my bag. Quickly, I asked, "May I go, sir?" He frowned. "Why the hurry?" The bag shifted behind me. The baby was rolling over, waking up. "I have a long way to go home, and curfew is coming. My mother will worry." The cooing became a sleepy cry, and I coughed loudly enough to cover it, then added, "Also, I might be getting sick. I should get home, sir." The Germans feared typhus. If he thought I might have it, maybe it would help me get out of here faster. "Go," he finally said, shoving my papers back at me. That was all I needed to hurry away from the gate. I ducked into a nearby Catholic church and sat in a pew to unpack the bag. The baby was already awake, but still lethargic from the sleeping pills. She was too thin, but seemed strong. Her tiny body wanted to live. "May we help you?" a priest said, appearing in the aisle beside me. I looked up, startled and empty of words. My pulse was still racing from leaving the ghetto, and I wasn't thinking as clearly as I needed to. Before I could answer, he noticed the baby and seemed to understand. "Ah, it's you." He held out his arms for the baby, assuring me she'd be safe with her new family. One day, I hesitated a moment, making sure the priest heard me. One day, her adoptive parents must tell this child who she really is, the sacrifices her mother made. When he promised they would, I gave him the baby and left, hoping this child, who would be raised saying Catholic prayers and attending Mass, would retain a kernel of her Jewish origin within her heart. I hoped, but whatever happened, at least I could end this day knowing one life had been saved. For now, that was enough.